Hello everyone, welcome to Lone Pine Habitat Management and our YouTube channel. My name is Nate Michalski. I'm the founder and lead consultant here at Lone Pine. We're recording this on August 18th, so right now we're pretty much in the middle of August, getting closer to the end of August. And for us, we consider that our late summer period. Other parts of the country, it might be a little later, especially further south, it's more September time. But for us, this is our late summer period. And a lot of people kind of give up on that late summer. They just kind of wait for their food plots to grow and pretty much do nothing else. But there are actually some small improvements we can make on the land even before we get to that, 1 month out from the season where we want to leave it to the deer. We don't want to put any human pressure, any human presence on top of the deer. But there's still some things this time of year that we can do. So let's kind of dive right into it. Number 1 and 2 are very much married together, and you'll actually see the 3, 4, and 5 come right back into number 1. And so the first one is moving stands and blinds. So this is a great time where we've done all of our habitat improvements throughout, whether it be the winter, spring, summer, we've done all these habitat improvements on our land. Now it's our time to actually settle in and prep for the hunting phase of it. So obviously within our management plans, we already have tree stand trees picked out. We already have locations picked out. Blinds, a big one. I'd actually get those in a little earlier, but it's not too bad to get in now. Like I said, you can still have a month and a half with the deer get used to it. It could also be a time for older blinds if your screenings have become a little disheveled or you have some wilting on some of those screenings. You can get some fresh stuff on there, really screen that blind in well. But like I said, we should pretty much have these locations picked out. It's just now that we've made the improvements and we're prepped to start looking at hunting time, now we can actually put those stands, put those blinds in place to get us ready for the season. And with that, again, something else that should be 100% nailed down in your planning process, but something that we can do because we actually kind of want to push it into this later time frame to get the most out of it, and we'll understand that in a second, is actually creating our access or improving our access. So in our plan, typically, we have areas of access. We might even have like sketched out trails to our stands, to our individual blinds. But now we actually want to build it. And the way we do so is we actually want to create our own little tiny trails. So not travel lanes like we'll talk about later. We don't want deer traveling on these, but these really skinny paths, just enough to pretty much fit your 2 boots next to each other, maybe just a tad bit more. And we want those pushed down to bare dirt, right? So we want no leaves, no sticks. Sticks are the big one. Leaves are going to fall during the season, but leaves are going to end up on the trail no matter what. Something we can't avoid. But with leaves, we can work with it. We can walk like an animal. And if we have most of them cleared, it won't be as bad. We'll have a little cushion with soil underneath. But the big one we want to get out of the way is sticks, right? We don't want to be walking through snapping sticks on our way to our stand every time we access it. Especially if we can do it now and clear it out now, it's something that's completely avoidable. You might have one random stick that kind of falls in your path. You can step right over that. But if you have a bunch of them layered up and you don't improve your access at all, now you're snapping sticks, pushing leaves around your whole walk-in. The other part is scent. We don't want, random branches or leaves from saplings, prickers, shrubs, grasses, whatever might be on the edges of our trails rubbing up against our clothes. Because even if we've done the best we can with our scent control, there's still some scent molecules left over, and we don't want those rubbing off our clothes along that trail every single time we go in. Because inevitably a deer's going to walk across that trail or get close enough to smell it, and if that happens 2, 3, 4 times during the season, all of a sudden you get some wary deer and they slowly move off that stand location, slowly start avoiding it. And now you've completely wasted one of your stand locations for pretty much the entire season, especially as that later season rolls around. So now that we kind of have our stand locations picked out, again, these are still things that should be planned ahead of time, but they might be a good way to spice up some of those stands, especially if we're on a primary travel corridor between other layers of attraction. So one is mock scrapes. So this is one, like I said, we're primarily looking at travel locations. Maybe a kill plot. This could be another good option where if you have a great stand location on a kill plot, wind's good, all that. Everything, like I said, should all be set up and planned previously. But it could be a little spot to just help you set up that deer for a good shot, right? Another great spot for mock scrapes is leading into and out of bedding areas because it lets deer kind of get a feel for who's around, especially if you get into the rut. We might have bucks start hitting them looking for does. I actually had a run-in with one of our target bucks a couple of years ago where I had him at about 80 yards during gun season. Saw him look up, hit a scrape right on the edge of doe bedding, turned face, and went right into it. Never got a shot. But it just shows the power that these scrapes can have over deer. But one problem we commonly see with mock scrapes is their actual setup. Typically, it's a lot of the issues we see are with height of that hanging branch or that rope, that vine, whatever it might be, where we often see it up at like chest height or chin height, something that seems comfortable for a human to come up to. But we have to remember, we're not hunting humans, we're hunting deer, right? A deer, we also don't want to only think about bucks when we think about deer. We want our mock scrapes down at waist height, maybe belly button height, depending on the terrain. And then also on a pretty level area. That's another thing. You don't want to put it up on a slope or up on a little mound. We want it in a pretty level area. But the big thing, I digress, is with the height, is we don't only want bucks hitting it, right? Because then if a buck's trying to hit a scrape every day and they just smell themselves or just another rival buck, they're going to lose interest pretty quick. We want does. We want even fawns and yearlings hitting it. We want as much natural deer scent hitting that scrape as we can to make it a wealth of information for each deer that comes in. It makes it worthwhile for them to come and check who's been through that area each time. So another good one, number 4, is watering holes. So this is another one that is kind of a sweetener. So one big issue we see with watering holes is people putting them in food plots. The biggest issue with that is they really don't add anything to a food plot. Food plot is attractive as it is, right? If there's good food for a deer to come to, they're going to come to it anyways. There's no reason for a watering hole there. Even in a small kill plot, if they're going to go through it every evening, going into those holdover plots or getting sent to your neighbor's property, there's no reason for you to have a watering hole if they're going to be there anyways. Where they really sweeten the deal is in travel corridors, up against bedding areas, the midpoint between bedding areas and food, either way really. Because what ends up happening is deer feed overnight, and then they end up, I got to get some water down just to wash this all down as they get to their bedding area, right? A lot of people think of bedding areas as strictly bedding and resting, but deer are also browsing as they're in their bedding areas. They're moving about, nipping at buds, twigs, leaves, right, as they go and they feed. And then as they go to those larger plots, or just in general our food plots to feed for the evening, they might still want to wash that midday feed down as they work towards those food plots. So off the edges of bedding areas are great spots for watering holes. And it becomes even more attractive to some rutting bucks as we get into the rut, because in reality they're not eating a ton, they're not resting as much, they're up on their feet hoofing it all day long looking to breed, right? So those deer, when they get a chance, especially if they've been by that watering hole, if it's one of your resident bucks that's been there since, say, September, October, then we get into November with our rut season, or rut time of year, I should say. We get deer that have hit that watering hole, it could be even dozens of times, over and over and over, and they know, ooh, there's a nice little spot of water, I'll go get some real quick before I keep rutting, right? So it can be a great spot to really narrow down your rutting bucks in the morning. And also they'll use it at some very odd time, what we consider odd times a day, You could be sitting there all the way up till 10, 11 o'clock, and then all of a sudden that deer comes through for a drink before he goes takes that little rest during the day. Because that's usually the time of day that does are kind of resting. They're getting their break from those bucks. They're taking some time to digest, right? But those bucks don't want to be on their feet and going. So when those does kind of take a break, those bucks might break for that watering hole, get a quick sit before they either take a rest or continue back to running. So that can be a great place where if you're planning, an all morning sit or an extended sit, you might have one of your even target bucks just stroll by at 11, 12, 1 o'clock. Just because you have that little bit of attractiveness in that watering hole, just a little something to cool them down. So that's just something to think about. But in general, the big thing with watering holes, we do not want to just stick them in food plots. We want them on travel areas where they have their own attractiveness to them, not being subdued by attractiveness of a food plot or something else. And then number 5, we can improve our travel lanes. This is a big thing. So this is like if we have a travel lane and, a big tree's gone down and we want to just get that out of the way, right? We can create little connecting trails into beddings, things like that. We don't want to necessarily be building full travel lanes because they may or may not get those into full use. If it's late and you have one that, you have to connect a food plot to a bedding area, it's kind of a necessity to your plan. Build it, they'll find a way, they'll adjust. But in general, this is more improving travel lanes, building spots that are attractive with mock straits with watering holes. Like I said, these are kind of all in conjunction here. But just improving them, creating, a better pinch point if you don't have one already. One of the other reasons is we kind of want some cover and some browse along our travel lanes. So if you can do them early in the season where we're allowing for some regen on the sides, that's a little bit better. But if there's small improvements or clearances of those travel lanes you need to do, that's fine. You can also strip them down pretty much like we talked about with our access to bare dirt, right? We're expecting these to be highways, so we want them to be comfortable for deer to run through. So that's another thing you can do is actually clearing them out, like I said, not only tree trunks, but branches, large patches of leaves, big mounds of dirt, weird things that might not be ideal for a deer to run over or get snarled up, and push those out of the way. One other big thing with travel lanes that some people do wrong is they actually fell trees up over the top. And what that creates is basically a caged feeling or a boxed feeling for deer. So not only do we want to avoid that, but if that occurs over some of your travel lanes, after like a big windstorm or something of that nature, you want to go in and clear out those tops to make sure those deer don't feel like they're getting put in a box. And a bonus, and this is one that typically we think of with either food plot failure or partial failure, at least have some food options ready to lay down in a plot. In case you don't get the volume you need. So that could be, winterized cereal grains, tundra peas, and some like cold season peas in some areas. But have something prepared that if you have an issue in a plot, you make sure that you have something that will provide added food volume to ensure that your plots actually give you something during the season, and they don't just get, wiped out early with the little bit of volume you initially had. But that's just a bonus, especially like if you're getting around this time and you're seeing that your plots aren't quite germinating, aren't quite growing like you were expecting to this time of year. Definitely go out and start seeking out those options, like I said, like winterized cereal grains that you can plant early September, Labor Day time, that you can get in the ground and still get some more volume out of that plot. Just to make sure we're still getting the most out of our plan, because food plots are a huge portion of how we move deer throughout a property. So I hope you guys can take something away from today as you get in towards the weaning days of habitat improvement, and as we start, getting that itch as we get closer to the season. Another thing I'll say is shoot your bow. I hope we're all bow hunters here. If you're doing habitat management to this level, I believe you should hunt all through the season. If you are a bow hunter, make sure you are shooting your bow. And I'm not talking, take it out of the closet, shoot it once tomorrow, and then put it away because it's good and dialed in. No, you should be shooting at least, 5, 10, a dozen shots a day, getting that muscle memory, getting that feel for your bow, settling in your anchor points, making sure you are comfortable with any shot you take in the field. So if you are interested in having us come out to help you manage your plot, get a good plan set in place, we will have our email down below in the description. We're currently building our website still, so until then you can email us. And with that, just give us a little blurb about who you are, where you're from, what your plot is, and we'll also send over a form for you to fill out that gives us some more of that information. And then from there, we can set a date. We can come out and consult with you to help you build an incredible plan to make you have a better deer hunting property, a turkey hunting property, whatever that might entail for you. So like I said, I hope today you got something from this video. Hopefully you can implement some of these, or at least take notes on some of the things we talked about to make the most of these last few days. And we'll hopefully see you guys in the next video, and hopefully see you guys for a consultation. That would be awesome. So I'll send you off on your way, and have a good day, guys.